Get out of this house. Miles Whitaker's voice cut through the marble hallway like a blade. He didn't shout. He never had to. The sound of his words, flat, razor clean, made the chandeliers seem to hold their breath. Rosa James didn't move. She hadn't even started her shift. Hadn't touched a mop. Hadn't said more than 2 sentences since stepping past the iron gates. But she'd made the one mistake no one warned her about. She spoke to his sons. I said, Miles repeated, eyes like steel, get out. Behind Rosa, a little boy with a cracked plastic T-Rex held the broken tail in his fist. Lucas. The other, Logan, hid half behind a velvet curtain, one eye peeking out, face pale and angry in the same breath. Neither flinched at her. Only at him. Rosa let the silence sit where it needed to. Then, softly, there's glass in his palm. Miles didn't look at the cut. He looked at her. Security will escort you, he said. Rosa reached into her pocket, pulled out a folded handkerchief, and offered it to Lucas without taking a step closer. Wrap your hand, baby. Press, not rub. Lucas took it. He did as told. Logan watched, rigid and quiet. Rosa turned back to Miles, steady. I can walk myself out. But I won't leave a child bleeding. For a heartbeat, the house didn't breathe. 1 hour earlier, the last nanny had lasted 5 hours. That was the caution whispered by the assistant at the gate, the kind of warning that sounded like hospitality but felt like a dare. The rest of the staff said as little as possible. Even the gardener clipped hedges like he was shaving a sleeping lion. Rosa signed her name on the visitor log in careful pen strokes, Arsings, and pressed the badge to her blouse. The Whitaker mansion spread wide and immaculate, windows like watchful eyes. It was the kind of rich that liked to pretend it didn't notice itself. Inside the drawing room, Miles Whitaker stood behind a long table of polished mahogany. No photos. No finger paints. No mess a home makes when it's busy being alive. A leather portfolio waited unopened beneath his hand. Miss James, he said, the syllables efficient. Housekeeping. Temporary. Cleaning, Rosa corrected gently. And temporary's up to you. A flicker crossed his face, annoyance or curiosity she couldn't tell. You came recommended by a client on Birch Avenue, he said. They said you're unflappable. Rosa offered a small shrug. Life did the flapping. I just learned to stay upright. He gestured to the chair. She sat. He remained standing. You will not interact with my sons, he said. You will not enter their rooms. You will not speak to them, look for them, or involve yourself. We've been through 18 nannies in 6 months. I am out of patience. Rosa nodded once. I'm not here to apply for a nanny job. But start with the kitchen. Then the west corridor upstairs. If you need supplies, ask Ms. Avery, she's the house manager. He started to turn away. Rosa's voice, calm, low, reached him before the door. Mr. Whitaker. He paused, spine a straight line. This house is too quiet, Rosa said. It doesn't breathe. His jaw tightened. You'll find it easier here if you keep observations to yourself. Fair enough, she said. But quiet like this isn't peace. It's something else. He didn't respond. He left. Rosa exhaled, not out of fear, but to mark the start of a long job. She had worn her good blouse, the one with the tiny stitched collar. Her shoes were soft-soled, meant for hours. In another life she'd worn scrub tops and clogs, coaxing frightened patients back from edges no one should stand on. In this one, she cleaned the rooms people didn't notice until they needed to, and sometimes she noticed the people they wished they didn't. The kitchen shone too bright, sterile and joyless. 3 cereal boxes lined like soldiers. A bowl of fruit trying its best to look helpful. 2 glasses in the sink, one ringed with chocolate milk, the other stamped with a small fingerprint like a signature nobody would claim. She wiped the counters, checked the fridge for science experiments, and found the note-tacked schedule of a life run like a company memo. Breakfast 7:15, tutor 8 o'clock, speech therapy 3 o'clock, lights out 8:30. No slot for laugh. Upstairs, the west corridor met her with a neat stack of laundry outside a closed door. She bent to gather t-shirts small enough to fold in her palm. From inside the room came the scuff of socks against carpet, the sound of two boys breathing one plan between them. "She'll leave," a whisper said. "Lucas." "They all do," another answered. "Logan." Rosa didn't open the door. She didn't crouch and coo. She simply paused with a cotton shirt in her hands and spoke to the wood between them, as if it were a friend who'd seen too much. "I'm not here to fix you," she said. "I'm here to stay." Silence. Then the quiet patter of retreating feet. A closet door clicked. A small shelf rattled. A fortress securing itself. Rosa moved on. She was dusting the console table at the landing, a long piece of ebony that would have looked warmer with a vase of wildflowers, when a crash cracked the air. The kind of sound a glass makes when it meets tile and loses. She followed it to the breakfast room. Lucas stood barefoot, a constellation of shards around his toes and a red bloom in his palm where the stem had bitten. The T-Rex tail stuck out of his pocket like a guilty flag. Logan was a shadow in the drapes, jaw clenched, eyes fierce as if daring any adult in the world to be cruel again. Rosa didn't say, "Oh my God." She didn't say, "What did you do?" She knelt. "I've got you," she said to Lucas. "Don't move. We'll make the floor safe first." She grabbed a dish towel, swept a safe path with slow, patient strokes, then extended the towel like a bridge. "Step here, please." One foot. Now the other. Good. He stepped. He didn't look at her. He looked at the blood and looked away fast, like it was rude to keep noticing. Rosa pulled the handkerchief from her pocket, clean and folded. "Press here. You're not in trouble. Things break. It's how we clean them up that tells us who we are." That was the moment Miles appeared in the doorway. He didn't see a bleeding boy first. He saw an unfamiliar woman where he had ordered no strangers to be. "Get out of this house," he said, voice like a locked door. Rosa didn't stand. She didn't flinch. "There's glass in his palm. You were instructed not to engage." "I was instructed to clean," she answered, eyes up, even. "Glass is part of that." His gaze cut to Lucas. To the handkerchief blooming red. To the floor, newly safe. To Logan, unhidden now, shoulder pressed to the curtain like a tree he meant to hold upright. The scene was an indictment without a word in it. "Ms. James," Miles said, each consonant precise. "Leave. Now." Rosa looked at Lucas. "Keep pressing. In 30 seconds I'll wrap it and we'll rinse. No rubbing. Just water." Lucas nodded in the smallest way, permission or plea, it didn't matter. He was believing the process. Miles stepped forward. "I'll handle my sons." Rosa rose, slow, respectful without surrender. "Then handle them like sons." Something old and flammable moved behind his eyes. Security didn't come. The house manager didn't burst in. The staff knew the rules. Do not enter a storm until you're sure who it's going to drown. Rosa wrapped Lucas's hand in quick, gentle turns. "There you go," she murmured. "We'll wash it and breathe. Do you know what breathing does? It tells your body you're safe." Lucas let out a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Logan's shoulders lowered by half an inch. Rosa handed the boy his choice. "Walk with me to the sink, or I'll bring a bowl here. You decide." Lucas pointed toward the sink. They went. Logan followed, close as a shadow that wanted a job description. Rosa turned on the tap, let the water run cool, then cupped Lucas's hand so the stream hit knuckle first, not wound. She didn't look at Miles again until the blood thinned to pink and the pink to nothing. Only then did she step back and fold her hands. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, tone even, "I can finish the kitchen and be gone by 2. Or I can leave now, and you can take over." Miles's mouth opened, then closed. He was a man who conquered markets before breakfast. Yet here, at a sink with a child and a dish towel, he was late to his own house. "Thank you," he said at last, the words strange in his mouth. "Ms. James. That will be enough." He heard himself. He corrected. "That will be all." Rosa nodded. She handed the boys back to their father without touching him, then stepped away. She didn't plead. Didn't justify. Didn't promise anything she couldn't guarantee. In the hallway, the cameras watched her go. In his office, Miles watched the feed. He watched the way Lucas had taken the handkerchief, the way Logan had stepped from behind the curtain not because he trusted Miles, but because, for a minute, he trusted her. He rewound the footage once. Twice. He watched the moment at the door upstairs when Rosa had said through wood, "I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to stay." He closed the laptop. Down the corridor, Rosa picked up her bucket, her badge, her pride, and paused at the threshold. She looked back, not at the man, but at the boys. "I'll see you around," she said gently. Not a promise. A possibility. Logan's chin lifted a fraction. Lucas pressed the handkerchief a little less hard. Miles felt the house shift by a breath he hadn't authorized. Outside, the iron gate hummed open. The mansion swallowed its quiet again, polished and unbroken to the naked eye. But something hairline and human had appeared on its surface. A crack where light could learn the way in. The first thing Rosa noticed the next morning was the silence. Not the peaceful kind. Not the kind that follows rest. This was the kind of silence that pressed into the walls. That stretched too long between questions never asked and answers never given. The Whitaker mansion didn't breathe. It held its breath. The air inside was still. Stale. Clean in the way a hospital was clean. Too polished, too controlled. No drawings on the fridge. No stray toys underfoot. No laughter bouncing off the walls. Just spotless marble and muted footsteps. Rosa arrived early, before the staff stirred. She didn't knock. The security system had already been programmed to recognize her badge. That alone told her something had shifted, even if Miles Whitaker hadn't said it. She made her way quietly down the corridor, past the formal dining room, past the office with its always closed doors. Her cleaning cart rolled beside her, its wheels humming against the floor. But her eyes weren't on the smudges. They were watching the shadows. The boys hadn't screamed when she spoke to them yesterday. They hadn't spoken either, but they hadn't flinched. And that, more than anything, told her what she needed to know. These weren't bad children. These were boys left alone with pain too big for their hands. At 8:17 a.m., Lucas appeared. Not with an entrance. With a presence. He stood at the edge of the kitchen, arms crossed, messy hair curling slightly at the temple. He didn't speak. Just watched her stack dishes from the drying rack. Rosa didn't turn. Cereals in the second cabinet. Milk's in the fridge. You don't have to ask. Lucas didn't move. A minute passed. Then two. Finally, he asked, "Are you the new maid?" "I clean," she said. "But I'm not new. Just early." Logan entered next, barefoot, dragging a green dinosaur plushie by the tail. He had the same sleepy look, but his eyes were sharper. Suspicious. "You're not scared of us?" Logan asked. Rosa finished wiping the counter. "Should I be?" Lucas said, "Everyone else was." "I'm not everyone else." They stood there, silent. Then Logan asked, "What's your name?" "Rosa." "That's weird." "Then I guess it fits," she said, sliding a plate toward them. "I'm not here to be normal." Lucas pulled himself up onto a stool. Logan followed. They didn't thank her. They didn't smile. But they didn't run either. Progress. Miles stood just outside the hallway, listening. He hadn't meant to eavesdrop. But something about the quiet in the kitchen drew him in. And hearing his son speaking, full sentences, no screaming, no slamming doors, it stopped him cold. For 6 months, he'd lived in a mansion of ghosts. Ever since Julia died. The boys had cried themselves hoarse for weeks. Then they'd stopped crying. And that was worse. They'd gone silent. Withdrawn. Angry. Therapists. Tutors. Nannies. All rotated through like a revolving door. No one stayed. No one reached them. Until now. Until Rosa James, who was supposed to be scrubbing floors, was making his sons pour cereal without a meltdown. He stepped into the room. "You're not assigned to the kitchen." Rosa didn't flinch. "Neither are they. But here we are." Lucas immediately lowered his spoon. Logan stiffened. Rosa kept wiping the sink. "If you want me gone again, you'll have to say it in front of them." Miles said nothing. Logan looked up. "She didn't do anything bad." "She helped us," Lucas added quietly. Their words settled into the space like bricks. Rosa didn't smile. She didn't gloat. She just said, "I'll be in the laundry room when you're ready to talk about what this house really needs." And then she walked out. By noon, Rosa had finished folding bedsheets with more creases than character. Every room in the house was decorated in shades of beige and gray, sterile, showroom perfect. But no signs of life. No books half-read. No socks forgotten. No fingerprints on the windows. She'd seen operating rooms warmer than this house. In the twins' room, the door was slightly ajar. She paused. Inside, 2 identical beds, military neat. A stuffed animal on each. A small bookshelf untouched. And a single pair of shoes tucked under Logan's bed, mismatched. She didn't enter. Just looked. And whispered, "Poor babies." At dinner, Rosa wasn't invited to serve. But she passed the hallway and heard it. Plates clinking, forks scraping porcelain, and silence. No talking. She lingered at the corner, out of sight. Until she heard a chair scrape violently. "I hate this," Logan shouted. "Why do we have to sit like statues?" "Logan," Miles said warningly. But Lucas joined in. "Mom let us talk." Mom told stories. Their voices were rising. Rosa stepped in. She didn't ask permission. Miles stood halfway up from his chair. "I didn't call for." "Then sit," Rosa said. He froze. She turned to the boys. "What story did she tell?" Logan sniffed. "The one about the moon monster." Lucas said, "And the dragon who didn't like toast." Rosa nodded. "Then finish eating and I'll tell you a new one after. But only if you chew slow." The boys sat. They didn't argue. They didn't scream. They ate. And Miles Whitaker, for the first time in months, didn't know if he'd just lost control of his house. Or if maybe, just maybe, someone else had given it back its breath. Miles Whitaker had fired people for less. A chef who served asparagus twice in 1 week. A tutor who used a red pen in front of Logan. A driver who arrived 2 minutes late during a rainstorm. He was not a man of leniency. Yet here he was, standing in his own dining room, hands clenched at his sides, watching a maid tell his son's bedtime stories in his living room like she belonged there. She hadn't been hired. Not formally. Not through protocol. Not through channels. And yet, somehow, she'd lasted longer than most. And somehow, his sons weren't screaming. He waited until the twins were asleep. The house had settled. The lights were dimmed. Staff had gone home. Rosa was wiping down the marble counters when he entered the kitchen, jacket off, sleeves rolled. He didn't waste time. "You're fired." She didn't look up. "I figured. I gave you clear instructions." "You did. You ignored them." "I did." He walked around the island slowly. "You think you're clever?" "No," Rosa said. "I think I'm useful." He stopped. "Excuse me." She turned to face him. Her eyes weren't defiant. They were exhausted. Honest. But not apologetic. "You want control," she said. "I understand that. You run companies, make decisions, build empires. But children aren't shareholders, Mr. Whitaker. They're not contracts you can outnegotiate." His jaw tightened. "Don't lecture me about my own sons." "Then why am I the first person they've spoken to in weeks?" That landed like a punch. He didn't answer. "They're not misbehaving," Rosa continued. "They're grieving. And no one's staying long enough to help them do it." "You don't know anything about them," he snapped. "I know Lucas chews on the corner of his sleeve when he's nervous." He blinked. "I know Logan pretends to sleep to avoid conversation. I know they fight not to be seen as fragile. And I know that deep down, both of them are waiting for the next adult to walk out." Miles stared at her. "Do you want them quiet?" she asked. "Or do you want them whole?" He exhaled. Sat down. Just sat. Rosa didn't move. She let the silence stretch. Finally he said, "They used to laugh." She nodded. "That means they still can." The next morning, Rosa was still there. Miles hadn't rehired her. Hadn't even acknowledged her. But the security code still worked. And breakfast was made. Lucas and Logan wandered in like small storm clouds. Logan muttered, "I dreamed the maid told off Dad." Lucas replied, "It wasn't a dream. She did." Rosa served them eggs and toast. "I'm not a maid. I'm Rosa." They ate quietly. Then Lucas asked, Are you leaving today? No. Logan said, they always leave the day after Dad yells. Well, Rosa replied, maybe I'm not here for your dad. Upstairs, Miles stood in his private study, blinds half drawn, sipping black coffee and watching the camera feed. He saw Rosa talk with the boys. He saw them nod. He saw them walk with her into the sunroom, not because they were told, but because they wanted to. He picked up his phone. Called HR. Put a hold on all nanny interviews. But sir, we have 3 lined up. Cancel them. All of them. The pause. What about Ms. James? Miles stared at the screen as Rosa gently guided Logan's hands into folding origami. Lucas laughed when it crumpled. He whispered to himself, she wasn't even supposed to be here. Then louder, she stays. That afternoon, Rosa found a man waiting at the gate. Well-dressed. Early 40s. Designer shoes. Nervous hands. I'm here for the interview, he said brightly. She tilted her head. Interview for what? Nanny, he said. I'm a specialist in trauma-informed child care. Harvard. Stanford. 2 TED Talks. Rosa wiped her hands on her apron. You're late. The man checked his watch. It's only 3:10. No, she said gently. You're 18 nannies too late. And then she walked inside. That evening, while folding laundry in the utility room, Rosa found a sealed envelope sitting on top of the twins' clean pajamas. Inside, an offer letter. Official. Titled, Special In-House Childcare Consultant. Below that, a handwritten note. They spoke. You stayed. That's all I needed. M.W. Rosa smiled faintly. She didn't need the title. Didn't need the raise. But what she needed was already happening. Down the hall, Logan peeked into her workspace. He didn't say anything. Just stood there, holding something behind his back. She looked up. You all right? He shuffled forward and held out a folded piece of paper. Inside was a stick figure drawing. 2 boys. 1 woman. A crooked house with a smiley face on it. At the bottom, in messy block letters. You didn't run. Rosa knelt slowly. Looked him in the eyes. No, baby. I didn't. He leaned in and whispered, please don't. She hugged him gently. I'm not going anywhere. And this time, someone believed her. The mansion was quiet. But not the dead, heavy silence of before. This time the air was still, but not because of fear. Because the boys were sleeping. For the first time in weeks, maybe months. Rosa stood at the doorway of their room, arms crossed, watching the soft rise and fall of 2 chests under navy blue comforters. The night light glowed faintly against the corner wall. One of the twins had left the dinosaur plushie under the bed. She didn't move it. Just let it be. Peace didn't need to be perfect. It just needed to exist. Downstairs, Miles Whitaker sat alone in the sunroom. No laptop. No drink. Just stillness. He stared at the cold fireplace for a long time, not really seeing it. He didn't know what Rosa had said to the boys. Didn't know how she had made them eat. Or laugh. Or sleep. Only that she had. And that he hadn't. His phone buzzed on the table. A message from Gregory Langford, Chief Operations. Press asking for a statement about the cancelled gala. Board confused why you haven't returned calls. Media speculating about your mental state. He turned the phone face down. Let them speculate. He had run multi-billion-dollar firms. Flown private to 6 countries in 2 days. Sat with presidents, signed treaties, built empires. But he hadn't been able to make his sons eat breakfast without screaming. Until she came. Rosa made herself tea in the dark. No lights. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old beams overhead. She didn't need noise. She needed presence. Halfway through her cup, she heard steps behind her. She turned slowly. Lucas. Holding a blanket. Bad dream? She asked. He nodded. Eyes heavy, voice quiet. Mom used to hum. Before bed. Rosa set her cup down. What kind of song? He shrugged. Didn't have words. Just sounds. She thought for a moment. Then walked to the couch, patted the seat beside her. Come on, sugar. He climbed up, curling against her side, his blanket tucked under his chin. She began to hum. Softly. A melody made from memory, not sheet music. Something her grandmother used to hum while shelling peas. Something warm. By the time Logan appeared at the edge of the stairs, Rosa didn't stop. She just opened her other arm. He came without a word, curling in just like his brother. Upstairs, Miles stood at the balcony, staring down into the living room. He saw it all. Two boys asleep against a woman who hadn't been hired to love them, who hadn't promised anything, but who was keeping everything. He should have walked away. Let them sleep. But his feet moved before his logic could stop them. When he reached the bottom step, Rosa looked up. Her hum faded. She didn't move. Didn't explain. Didn't apologize. Miles stood there in the dark, seeing something he hadn't seen since Julia died. His son's calm. Resting. He whispered, "How did you do it?" Rosa looked at him and said nothing for a moment. Then, "I didn't make them stop hurting. I just let them hurt somewhere safe." He sat down across from her, on the floor, back against the wall like a man with no title, no wealth, just a father who didn't know what else to try. "Do they talk about her?" he asked. "Not yet," Rosa said. "But they want to." He rubbed his face. "I don't know how to talk to them anymore." "Then don't talk," Rosa said softly. "Listen." They sat there for a long while. 3 breathing rhythms. One grieving father. One woman who refused to walk away. Miles said, "They blame me." Rosa didn't answer right away. Then, "Do you blame yourself?" He hesitated. "Every day." She nodded. "Then maybe you and the boys have something in common after all." By morning, the twins woke up in their own beds. They didn't remember how they got there. But they weren't afraid. And Rosa? She didn't ask for thanks. She went back to folding laundry like it was any other day. But when Logan ran by and high-fived her knee, and Lucas left a note on her cleaning cart that read, "You're cool." Oh. She folded that piece of paper with more care than the finest Egyptian cotton. That night, before heading to bed, Miles paused at the hallway leading to the guest wing. He looked at the closed door of the maid's quarters. He didn't knock. Didn't say goodnight. But for the first time in a long time, he smiled. Just a little. It started with a photo. A small, faded Polaroid that slipped from Rosa's wallet when she reached for a receipt. She hadn't meant for anyone to see it. But Lucas had fast eyes. He bent down, picked it up carefully. "Who's this?" Rosa froze. It was a boy. Maybe 8 years old. Smiling wide, one front tooth missing, arms outstretched like he was flying. The background was a cracked sidewalk and a rusted tricycle. She took the photo back gently. "Just someone I loved very much." Lucas looked up. "Is he your son?" Rosa didn't answer right away. Then she knelt beside him and said, "He was." That night, the boys didn't ask more. But they stayed close. Logan brushed her sleeve when walking past. Lucas stood near her cleaning cart longer than usual. Miles noticed. He didn't ask Rosa directly. He just waited until the boys were asleep, then called her into the study. She stood in the doorway, posture calm. "You lost a child." It wasn't a question. Rosa nodded once. "Yes." "When?" "5 years ago." Miles leaned forward. "What happened?" "Hospital said asthma," Rosa said. "But it wasn't just that." She paused. "It was the housing. The mold. The roaches. The neglect nobody fixed in time. I complained. Reported it. Nothing changed. Until it did." Miles went quiet. She added, "His name was Jordan." The name sat heavy between them. "I didn't mention it because this isn't about me," she said. "It's about them. Your sons." He looked at her. "Maybe it's about all of us." The next morning, Rosa found a folded piece of paper under her mop bucket. It wasn't a prank. It was Logan's handwriting. "Did Jordan like dinosaurs too?" She smiled. T-Rex was his favorite. But he was scared of butterflies. When Logan found the note, he giggled. Lucas peeked over his shoulder. "That's dumb." Logan said, "That's cool." Then added, "I'm scared of toilets that flush by themselves." They both laughed. And for the first time, it didn't feel like laughing was a betrayal of their mom. It just felt allowed. Later that afternoon, while Rosa dusted the upstairs library, Miles approached her with a worn book in hand. Leather-bound. Gold-pressed title. "I found this in storage," he said. "Julia used to read it to them." She took it gently. "They remember?" "Not clearly." "Then let's help them." That night, the twins sat cross-legged on the rug as Rosa opened the book. Miles stood just outside the room. Not quite joining, but not hiding either. Rosa didn't read in silly voices. She didn't act out the parts. She just read like someone remembering the words as much as discovering them. Halfway through, Logan leaned against her shoulder. Lucas blinked slowly, sleep heavy in his eyes. He closed his own eyes for just a moment, because he could still hear Julia's voice echoing those same sentences. And for a second, grief and peace sat in the same room without screaming. Later, Rosa folded laundry alone. Her hands moved automatically, but her mind drifted to Jordan, to the night he'd coughed until he couldn't anymore, to the silence that followed, to the social worker who said, "You did everything you could," and then handed her a pamphlet on grief as if that fixed anything. She'd sworn never to work with children again. Not because she didn't love them, but because she loved them too much. And now here she was, loving two more. Miles entered quietly. She didn't flinch. "I looked you up," he said. "There's no resume. No agency history. Nothing." "I stopped applying," Rosa said. "People don't want grief in the room." He nodded. "I know the feeling." They stood in the soft light, neither one needing to fill the silence. Then Miles said, "I think you being here, it's not an accident." Rosa folded the last towel. "No, I don't believe in accidents anymore." At midnight the house was still, but Rosa walked the halls once. Just once. Not to check for messes. To listen. She paused outside the twins' room. Heard Logan's breath, steady. Lucas whispered something in his sleep, and then, softly, "Jordan." Rosa leaned against the wall. Eyes closed. Hand over heart. She didn't cry. She smiled. Because maybe love didn't disappear. Maybe it just moved rooms. It started with whispers. A muttered comment in the hallway. A suspicious glance from the butler. And then, Gloria. Housekeeper of the Whitaker estate for 9 years. Stoic. Loyal to Julia Whitaker. And deeply resentful of anyone who stepped in like they belonged. Especially a maid who had no resume. No pedigree. And somehow, the children's affection. It happened over breakfast. Rosa had just helped Logan pour his own cereal. Lucas had actually laughed when she made the spoon dance across the counter like a puppet. That's when Gloria walked in. She froze. Took in the scene. 2 boys smiling. Rosa standing comfortably in the kitchen. Her kitchen. Gloria's lips tightened. Then loud enough for the chef to hear. "So this is what we've come to? Letting strangers feed the boys like it's some daycare?" Rosa didn't turn. But the boys did. Logan's face dropped. Lucas moved closer to Rosa's side. Rosa calmly said, "I'm not a stranger to them." Gloria's voice sharpened. "No background check. No clearance. No qualifications. Just walked in off the street and now you're touching their food." "Gloria," Rosa said gently, "not here." But Gloria was already walking toward the doorway. And her words chased her out like knives. "Mr. Whitaker should know you've been sleeping in the guest wing. That's not what maids do. Unless there's something else going on." The room froze. The boys looked confused. Rosa stood still. Silent. She didn't defend. Didn't retaliate. She just knelt beside Logan. "You okay, baby?" He nodded slowly. But his grip on her sleeve tightened. Miles heard about it an hour later. Not from Gloria. From Logan. The boy had wandered into his office, eyes red, voice trembling. She said Rosa's bad. Miles rose instantly. "What happened?" Gloria said she shouldn't sleep here. That she's not real. Miles crouched. "Did Rosa do something wrong?" "No." Logan burst. "She reads to us. She makes the dreams go away." His bottom lip quivered. "I don't want her to go." That was all Miles needed. He found Gloria by the linen closet, inspecting towels like they were soldiers out of formation. "Office. Now," he said. She followed, stiff-backed. Once inside, he closed the door. "You made an accusation," he said coldly. "Say it again." Gloria didn't blink. "I said the maid is overstepping." "No. You implied something worse. She has no credentials. No vetting. No experience. Yet she's sleeping in our guest wing, cooking meals, reading to the boys. That's not her place." Miles stepped closer. "And what exactly are you implying?" Gloria's voice didn't shake. "That she's manipulating you. Using the boys to secure herself here permanently. I've seen it before." Miles stared at her. "You think I'm blind?" he asked. "That I don't know when someone's using me?" "I think you're grieving," Gloria said. "And grief makes us stupid." The word stung. But not as much as the look in her eyes. A cold certainty. A refusal to believe Rosa could be here for anything but gain. Miles spoke carefully. "You knew Julia well." Gloria straightened. "She trusted me." "Then you know what she'd want. She'd want someone who made her boys feel safe." Gloria snapped. "And that someone shouldn't be a maid with no last name and no references?" Miles leaned in, voice razor-sharp. "She's the only reason they've slept for more than 2 hours at night." He paused. "And you just made Logan cry." Gloria's expression flickered. Miles stood tall. "Effective immediately, you're on leave. 2 weeks. Full pay. But stay away from this house." She opened her mouth. He cut her off. "Non-negotiable." And just like that, the woman who'd folded Julia's dresses for years walked out without another word. That evening, Rosa stood at the edge of the garden, arms crossed, watching the sun dip behind the hedges. She heard footsteps. Didn't turn. "I'm sorry," Miles said. "I've been called worse," Rosa replied. He stepped beside her. "You didn't fight back." "I don't argue with people who've already made up their minds." "She's been here a long time," Miles said quietly. "She helped raise Julia. But that doesn't give her the right." Rosa looked at him. "You believe me?" He didn't hesitate. "Yes." She exhaled. "That means more than you think." Later that night, Rosa tucked the boys into bed. They were quieter than usual. Lucas asked, "Are you going to leave?" "No," she said. "Not unless you ask me to." Logan whispered, "Even if other people hate you?" Rosa smiled gently. "People hated my hair in 5th grade. People hated how I sang off-key. I'm still here." The boys giggled. Then Logan said, "I'll punch them if they say anything mean again." Rosa kissed his forehead. "That's very sweet. But maybe let me try words first." And for the second night in a row, the house didn't just rest. It healed. It was a door no one touched. 2nd floor. East wing. White oak. Brass handle. No name. No plaque. Just silence. Rosa had passed it a dozen times while dusting the hall. But the knob had always been locked. Until today. She hadn't meant to open it. She was chasing a rogue soccer ball Lucas had kicked too hard. It bounced down the corridor, rolled to a perfect stop in front of the door. When she reached for the ball, the door clicked. Unlocked. Rosa hesitated. Something told her to turn away. But something stronger told her to look. She pushed it open. Slowly. It was a nursery. Not the boys' room. This one hadn't been touched in years. A soft pink wallpaper faded with time. Tiny white crib in the center. Books on the shelf untouched. A rocking chair by the window, frozen mid-sway as if someone had just stood up and never came back. Rosa stepped inside. The air smelled like old perfume and something else. Grief that hadn't been aired out. On the dresser sat a framed photo. Miles and Julia, holding a newborn. But not two. A girl. That evening, Rosa didn't mention it. She cooked dinner, helped with homework, laughed at Logan's paperplate mask. But her mind kept circling back to that room. To the dust. To the crib that was never disassembled. To the daughter no one spoke of. After the twins were asleep, she knocked on Miles's office door. He looked up, surprised. "Everything all right?" "I found the nursery." Silence. Miles closed his laptop. Sat back. Didn't speak. Didn't blink. Rosa didn't press. She just stood there. Quiet. Present. Finally, he said, her name was Emily. Rosa sat down across from him. She was our first, Miles said. Born 3 years before the twins. Perfect. But beautiful. His voice cracked. She got sick. One of those rare things with a name too long to pronounce. Julia stayed at the hospital every night. I took calls in the hallway. Pretended I was fixing it. He paused. She died in that room. Julia couldn't sleep there after that. We closed the door and never opened it again. I'm sorry, Rosa whispered. She was 5, he said. Same age Logan was when we buried her. He looked away. The twins don't remember her. We never showed them the room. Never talked about her. And then Julia was gone too, and I just shut everything down. Rosa's voice was gentle. But she didn't disappear. He nodded slowly. No. She's everywhere. The next day, Rosa didn't mention the room to the boys. But she pulled out an extra coloring book and left a note tucked inside. Your sister loved to draw butterflies. She didn't sign it. Didn't need to. A week later, Rosa entered the sunroom to find Logan taping paper butterflies to the glass. Lucas was coloring a sky full of them. They didn't ask how she knew. They just knew she knew. And somehow, that made everything feel safer. That evening, Miles stood outside the nursery door. He held the same key he hadn't touched in years. Took a breath. And walked in. He sat in the rocker. Held the photo. Closed his eyes. And for the first time since Emily's funeral, he didn't feel alone in the room. Later that night, Rosa found a folded piece of paper in her apron pocket. It wasn't from the boys. It was Miles's handwriting. You found a room I couldn't face. And you didn't run. Thank you. She pressed the note to her chest. Not because it was sentimental, but because it meant something had shifted. Trust wasn't being asked for anymore. It was being given. It started like any other morning. Rosa made waffles shaped like stars. Logan put syrup in his orange juice, just to see. Lucas called it disgusting and laughed so hard he spilled milk across the table. By 9 a.m., the boys were dressed and chasing each other through the garden with paper airplanes. By 10 a.m., they were gone. Rosa noticed first. She called out, Lucas? Logan? No answer. She checked the hedges. The treehouse. The garage. Nothing. By 10:15, her voice had turned sharp. By 10:20, her hands were shaking. She ran inside. Found Miles in the library. The boys, she said. They're not in the garden. They're not anywhere. He stood. What do you mean? I've looked everywhere. They're not in the house. The estate's security system was airtight. Cameras on every gate. Motion sensors along the fence. But nothing triggered. No alarms. Just silence. Miles barked into his phone. Lock down the perimeter. I want every staff member accounted for. His voice was clipped. Controlled. But Rosa saw the veins bulging in his neck. They've never done this before, he muttered. Never wandered. Rosa pressed. Was anyone angry with them? Anyone fired recently? Miles froze. Gloria. Rosa's stomach turned. 30 minutes passed. No sign. No clue. Then Rosa saw it. On the back porch table. A crumpled map of the neighborhood. Hand-drawn. In crayon. She unfolded it. Spotted 2 marked circles. Park. Butterfly Place. Her heart skipped. Miles leaned over her shoulder. What is that? Rosa said, I think they went looking for her. They split up. Miles took the SUV. Rosa ran. Literally, down the driveway. Past the iron gates. Down the winding neighborhood road barefoot, apron still tied at her waist. People stared. She didn't care. She ran like her life depended on it. Because it did. She reached the old conservatory. The one Julia used to take them to. Now abandoned. Overgrown. Broken glass on the path. Rust on the fence. She pushed through the gate. Lucas? Logan? No answer. A whisper. Ms. Rosa? She turned. In the middle of the wild garden. Two small figures crouched by a broken fountain, watching a butterfly land on their paper drawings. Rosa dropped to her knees, pulled them both into her arms. "What were you thinking?" she whispered. But there was no anger, just raw, unfiltered relief. Logan said, "We wanted to find the butterfly place." Lucas added, "To show Emily we didn't forget." Tears filled her eyes. Not because they were safe, but because they remembered. Miles arrived seconds later. The moment he saw them, he stumbled, hands on knees, like the air had left his body. Then he crossed the grass in 3 strides and dropped to his knees beside them. He pulled both boys in, held them so tightly Rosa thought they might disappear again. "I thought I lost you," he choked out. "I thought." Logan whispered, "We're okay, Daddy." Lucas added, "Emily would have liked it here." And just like that, something inside Miles broke. Not from pain. From the unbearable weight of grief meeting love in the same breath. Back at the mansion, the doctor checked the boys. Fritz, tired, but fine. Rosa stayed outside, pacing. When Miles came out, he said nothing. Just sat beside her on the steps. "I should have watched them better," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "I should have listened sooner." They sat in silence for a while. Then he asked, "Why did you run barefoot?" She smiled. "Because I've buried 1 child. I wasn't going to bury 2 more." That night, after the boys were asleep, Miles brought her a box. Inside, old photos. Emily's drawings. A bracelet made of macaroni. "She would have liked you," he said. Rosa didn't speak. Just nodded. Because some grief isn't answered with words. Only presence. In the guest room later, Rosa found something tucked into her pillow. A crayon drawing. 3 stick figures holding hands. 2 boys. 1 woman in an apron. Above them a butterfly. It came in an envelope. Cream-colored. Sealed with the Whitaker family crest. Left quietly on Rosa's nightstand. She opened it slowly. Inside was a letter. Formal, cold, and unmistakably final. "Dear Ms. Rosa James, due to concerns raised by the Family Oversight Committee regarding security, propriety, and protocol breaches, your employment with the Whitaker household is hereby terminated, effective immediately." At the bottom, no signature. Just the printed name. Whitaker Trust Board. Not Miles. Not even his assistant. A committee. She stood in the hallway, letter in hand, for a long time. The air felt heavier than usual. So expectant. She walked to the boys' room. Then turned back. No goodbyes. Not yet. Miles found her packing an hour later. He didn't knock, just entered, eyes scanning the half-zipped suitcase. "What is that?" he asked, voice tight. Rosa didn't look up. "Your family committee wants me out. Today." His jaw clenched. "I didn't authorize this." "Doesn't matter." She folded the boy's butterfly drawing gently, tucked it between her blouses. "They think I'm a problem. That I've gotten too close." "You have," he said quietly. "And that's the only reason this house has come back to life." Rosa's hand stilled. "You don't have to defend me," she said. "I knew this wouldn't last." Miles stepped closer. "No, you didn't. Because you hoped." She finally looked up. And for the first time since she arrived, her eyes shimmered. "I buried a son, Mr. Whitaker. And then I came here and found 2 more hearts I never planned to love. I wasn't looking for a job. I was looking for somewhere I could breathe again." Miles said nothing, because anything he said would fall short. But someone else did speak. "Where are you going?" Logan stood at the door. Lucas right behind him. Both in pajamas. Both clutching their stuffed animals like shields. Rosa exhaled. Bent down to meet them eye level. "I have to go, babies. Grown-up stuff." "Did we do something wrong?" Lucas asked. "No. You did everything right." "Is it because we ran away?" Logan's voice broke. "We're sorry." Rosa shook her head, tears sliding silently. "No, baby. It's because some people don't understand what love looks like when it's not written in a contract." Later, Miles called an emergency family board meeting. He stood at the head of the grand oak table, his voice low but razor sharp. "You fired the woman who saved my sons," he said. The eldest aunt, cold pearls and colder eyes, replied. She was never cleared. No background vetting. No agency record. It's unacceptable for someone like her to have free access to the children. Someone like her? Miles repeated. She's emotionally compromised, the woman added. She's attached. Miles leaned forward. So am I. The room stiffened. He went on. 4 months, no therapist, no nanny, no doctor could reach them. You saw it yourselves. The boys were shells. I was drowning. And then she came in, not with credentials, but with care, with patience, with love. He slapped the table. You don't get to remove the only person who made them want to live again. The room fell silent. Then a voice piped in, soft high but firm, from the doorway. Lucas. Ms. Rosa makes the bad dreams stop. And next to him, Logan. She loves us. Even when we're messy. No one moved. No one breathed. Then Miles turned to his stunned relatives and said, She's not leaving. If you force her out, you'll have to remove me too. That night, Rosa sat on the edge of her bed. The suitcase still packed. The letters still folded on her nightstand. She heard a knock. Then the door opened, without waiting for permission. Miles stepped in, holding a glass of water and a torn envelope. Committee reversed their decision, he said. Unanimous. Rosa blinked. What changed their minds? He smirked faintly. Your defense attorneys were very persuasive. She smiled through tears. You're going to spoil those boys. They already are, Miles replied. But now at least they're spoiled with peace. Before bed, the twins slipped a note under Rosa's door. A drawing. 3 stick figures again. But this time, a crown on her head, labeled Queen of Calm. It started with a forgotten calendar. The Whitaker dining schedule had always been precise. Set meals. Assigned seats. Formal dress codes. Even the boys had learned to chew quietly. But that night, there was no chef. Rosa had sent the kitchen staff home early. And instead, the dining table was covered in mismatched plates, paper napkins, and food straight from the oven. Fried chicken, cornbread, mac and cheese bubbling with real cheddar, and 2 glasses of grape soda already half empty, thanks to Logan's early sips. Miles walked in wearing his usual blazer, then stopped dead. What is this? Rosa turned from the oven, wiping her hands on a towel. Dinner. He raised an eyebrow. No tablecloth? No linen napkins. No salad forks. No silence. Lucas popped up from under the table. There's music too. Rosa pressed play on the old radio sitting on the counter. A soft jazz tune filled the air. Cozy. Miles blinked. This isn't how we eat, he said. Rosa replied, maybe that's the problem. They sat together, Rosa, Miles, the boys, around a table that had never felt this human. Logan grabbed 2 biscuits before anyone said grace. Lucas spilled soda on his shirt and didn't apologize. He didn't correct them. Instead, he laughed. Actually laughed. And when Rosa served him a second helping of greens, he didn't flinch at the lack of garnish. He just said, You cook like my grandmother used to. Rosa smiled. Then your grandmother had good sense. The boys told stories between mouthfuls. Lucas described a dream where a butterfly turned into a spaceship. Logan insisted he could talk to squirrels now. Rosa didn't interrupt. She asked questions. Listened. Miles sat back, arms crossed, watching it all unfold. Not just the chaos, but the calm within it. After dinner, instead of retreating to their separate spaces, they stayed in the kitchen. Lucas washed. Logan dried. Miles leaned against the counter. Rosa hummed while wiping down the stove. And then, Miles asked the question he hadn't dared until now. Do you miss him every day? Rosa turned, not startled. Yes, she said softly. But not always with pain. He nodded. I still set a place for Julia sometimes. By accident. She probably smiles every time you do. He looked at her. Really looked. For the first time, not as a maid. Not even as a caretaker. But as someone who had climbed through grief. and made a home in its ruins. Later, in the hallway after the boys had gone to bed, Miles walked Rosa to her door. Not because he had to. Because he wanted to. He said, "You know, I was raised to believe love had rules. Protocol. That feelings must be filtered through legacy and names and—" He paused. "Approval." Rosa smiled faintly. "And how's that working for you?" He laughed. Then silence. But it wasn't heavy. It wasn't awkward. It was full. She placed a hand on the door handle. Miles asked, almost too quietly, "Are you happy here?" She looked at him. Truly looked. "I haven't felt this much like myself in years." He nodded. Then stepped back. Gave her space. Because love, real love, starts in the pauses between want and restraint. That night, Rosa lay in bed staring at the ceiling. The mansion was silent. But inside her chest, something stirred. Not fear. Not uncertainty. Just a soft, terrifying hope. In his own room, Miles found a drawing pinned to his pillow. From Logan and Lucas. For stick figures this time. One with a tie. Two with crazy hair. One with a braid and a glowing smile. Above them all, a heart. It came with the rain. Dark clouds rolled over the estate by morning. Winds howled against the windows. Thunder cracked like a warning bell. Rosa stood in the hallway, sensing it before it arrived. Some storms start outside. Others begin in the heart. This one was both. Gloria returned at noon. Unannounced. Umbrella in one hand. Folder in the other. Hat pinned perfectly, eyes sharper than ever. She walked into the foyer like she had never left. The butler stammered. The chef paused mid-stir. And then she saw Rosa. Their eyes locked. "You look comfortable," Gloria said flatly. Rosa didn't flinch. "Should I not be?" Gloria smiled tightly. "Oh, you should be. While you still can." By the time Miles came downstairs, Gloria was seated in the parlor with a cup of untouched tea and that folder resting neatly on her lap. "What is this?" he asked. She stood. "Due diligence." She opened the folder and handed him the contents. Inside were court documents. Faint, but unmistakable. Rosa's name. A custody hearing. A protective services seal. Miles looked up, confused. "She lost her child," Gloria said coldly. "Not to illness. To the system." The room went still. Rosa stood frozen by the doorway. The boys, thankfully, were upstairs. Gloria continued, voice like ice. She was ruled unfit. Emotional instability. Reckless endangerment. She was found in a shelter with no documentation and a baby who hadn't eaten in a day. That child was taken. Miles said nothing. Just turned toward Rosa. Rosa's voice was barely audible. "It was true." Gloria smirked, victorious. "Did she tell you she ran away from 3 counties? That she refused therapy? That she disappeared for years after?" "She didn't disappear," Miles said sharply. "She rebuilt." Rosa stepped forward. Hands shaking but eyes clear. "My son Elijah was born in a storm too. I was 19. Alone. Working nights. One night, my ride didn't come. I walked home in the rain carrying him in a blanket." She paused. "I slipped. Landed hard. Didn't realize I'd hit my head until I woke up on the shelter cot hours later." She looked at Gloria. "They thought I was neglectful. But I wasn't. I just had no one." Miles listened in silence. Then asked gently, "Where is he now?" Rosa's lips trembled. "He was adopted. A good family. I stayed away because I thought he deserved better than a mother who failed once." She swallowed hard. "But I wrote. Every year. I don't know if they read them, but I wrote." Tears filled her eyes. "And I cleaned houses. Saved. Studied childcare on my own. Never took another risk until now." She looked at him. "This job wasn't supposed to mean anything. But your boys, they brought back something I thought was dead." Gloria scoffed. "And now you're a saint?" "No," Rosa said. "I'm a woman who fell. And got up." Miles stepped between them. Turned to Gloria. "You came back to destroy someone who built something good." "She's a liability," Gloria snapped. If the press finds out. They won't, he cut in. Because I won't let them. He stepped closer. This house belongs to me. So do its rules. And as of now, those rules say Rosa James stays. Permanently. Gloria paled. You're making a mistake. Miles smiled. No. I made a mistake trusting the wrong people. As Gloria left, the rain outside softened. She didn't say goodbye. Rosa didn't watch her go. Some storms don't deserve a second glance. That night, Rosa sat on the floor of the twins' room, telling them a story about a brave girl and a butterfly who couldn't fly. Lucas asked, "Did the butterfly ever fly again?" Rosa smiled. "No," she said. "But she learned to dance in the wind." Logan whispered, "Like you?" Rosa kissed his forehead. "Exactly like me." Downstairs, Miles poured 2 cups of tea. Waited. Then brought one up to Rosa. She took it with a quiet thank you. He said nothing more. Just sat beside her, watching the boys sleep. And for once, there was no lightning. No thunder. Just peace. 1 month passed. No more letters. No more threats. No more locked doors. Just breakfasts with extra syrup. Drawings taped to every cabinet. And laughter echoing through the Whitaker mansion like music that finally remembered how to play. Rosa wasn't just staying. She belonged. But then came the invitation. A gala. Annual Whitaker Foundation fundraiser. The first since Julia passed. Every name in the city would be there. Politicians. Investors. Journalists. And Miles had to attend. Rosa offered to watch the boys at home. "You need the spotlight, not me," she said. But Miles looked at her, expression unreadable. "I want them to see you." She froze. "You want me at the gala?" "Not as staff," he added. "As someone they'll remember." That night, Rosa stood in front of the full-length mirror in a deep navy gown she hadn't touched in years. Her hands trembled slightly. Then she heard Logan's voice from the hallway. "Ms. Rosa, are you a queen?" Lucas chimed in, "She's not a queen. She's a superhero." She smiled, held back tears, and walked out like someone who finally knew her worth. The gala was held at the downtown conservatory. Glass ceilings. Marble floors. Photographers flashed like fireworks. Whispers followed them in. Not about Miles, but about the woman at his side. Was she his assistant? A new investor? A mystery date? Miles ignored them all. Walked with Rosa beside him, head high. Introduced her by name. Every time. "This is Rosa James." No title. No explanation. Because he didn't need to explain family. Later that evening, the host called Miles to the stage. He gave a speech about the foundation. The vision Julia had left behind. The legacy they'd built. And then he paused. "I've spent years building walls," he said. "Around my business. Around my sons. Around my heart." He scanned the crowd. Until someone walked in, not with money or fame or pedigree, but with compassion. And courage. He looked at Rosa. She reminded us how to feel. How to grieve. How to heal. A breath. And so, tonight, I'd like to honor someone who didn't just save this family. She rebuilt it. He held up a framed certificate. One she hadn't seen before. Director of Family Wellness and Legacy. Signed by the full Whitaker Trust. Applause erupted. But Rosa didn't move. Until the boys, dressed in tiny suits, ran up and pulled her on stage. "Say something," Logan shouted. Rosa took the mic. Looked out at the sea of people. And said simply, "I didn't come here to lead. I came to serve. But love turns servants into family. And I am honored to be theirs." Back at the mansion, long after the gala had ended and the boys were fast asleep, Rosa stood by the garden window. Miles approached with 2 cups of tea. "This one has honey," he said, handing her a cup. She took it. "Do you think Julia would have liked me?" she asked softly. Miles didn't answer right away. "She would have loved you," he said, "because you loved them." Rosa nodded. "Then I did the unthinkable." He frowned. "What do you mean?" She turned to him. "I opened my heart again. After it was crushed. I trusted your boys. I trusted this house. And somehow, I trusted you. The pause. And that, she whispered, is the bravest thing I've ever done. Miles stepped closer, took her hand, held it not with urgency, but with quiet reverence. I didn't think I could feel anything again, he admitted. Not after Julia. Not truly. Rosa didn't pull away. Then we're both learning, she said. He smiled. Starting tonight, can I walk beside you? Not as an employer, not even as a father, but as whatever this is becoming. She didn't answer with words. She just stayed. Weeks later, a new plaque was added to the mansion gates. For the Whitaker family residence. All are welcome who carry love. And underneath, etched in brass, Miles, Lucas, Logan, and Rosa.